Greetings, friends. The West is going through a period of decadence, which means moral degeneration, and it's all about me, 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 me. There's no God, we're all atheists, so, there's no moral superstructure, so I can do whatever I want. And inevitably, within a few decades, community goes out the window. That's why cities are so depressing places as opposed to rural areas where there's still some semblance of community arriving. And basically all of us in the West, well, not all of us, but this mass of people are lonely, so lonely, and can't understand why we're lonely. We're too lazy to do anything about it. But what we do instead is, these people, they buy pets, especially dogs. And it's because they're afraid of being alone. It might be more women doing this, but men also do this. And basically, I think these pets are purchased to be substitutes for children. So it would make sense in a feminist society where so few couples have successful marriages, let alone even produce children, that the cat or the dog becomes a natural replacement. And I know my parents had their cat back in the 70s when they were getting together, back then it was kind of like, oh, that's a natural stepping stone on your way to having kids. But nowadays it's like, well, some people never actually get there. It's like they get one cat, then they get another cat, maybe they get a dog. And that's what I know. I'll give you two stories of two couples I know. One of them, let's call them Stephen and Julie. Now, Stephen and Julie, I've known them for many years, and they got married at like 20 years old. Very unusual for, Southern Ontario, urban Toronto. That's very unusual, and they're still married today, but they've had these cats now for 9 or 10 years, almost as long as they've been together, and the cats are fat, and these people drink beer, so they're fat too, and they like to, play World of Warcraft back in the day. Not now, but they're that kind of people that like to be planted, literally. So you have your cats around the house and then waddle around, and then you come by to visit, and the cats are kind of there as a replacement to the television. And I guess they're kind of like children too, but they're also like an entertaining function, because the cats will waddle by and they'll say, oh, what are you doing? And they'll talk to the cats. And when people talk to cats, they do it in the way that they talk to children. They say, well, maybe not cats, but dogs a lot of the time, like, oh, what are you doing? Aren't you just a silly little muffin, whatever? And I think it's really weird. You shouldn't do that. A dog is not a kid. A cat is not a kid. And you shouldn't even talk to a kid like that. When a kid is growing up, they'll naturally mimic what they hear. So just talk to your 2-year-old like you would talk to an adult. He'll mimic that, and then he won't be talking in this annoying, hyper-intoned, sing-song language when you talk to a kid. But anyways, I'm getting off topic. But yeah, talking to a child, talking to a pet is a similar dynamic going on there. You don't need to talk to them like that. You should probably even be talking to them at all. Well, sometimes you might want to talk to them if you're angry at them, but that's not actually like they can understand you, because they can't. A dog is very stupid. A cat is smarter. Cats are more aware, but they also can't understand what you're saying. So yeah, people are very afraid of being alone. So I just think that's why you see this preponderance of pets. And it's sort of irresponsible because, in our increasingly urban society, where more of us live in urban areas aren't very well suited for cats and dogs, especially for dogs. Dogs need more exercise. Dogs need to be walked. So then it's more of an investment you have to make. And of course, if you're willing to make that investment, go ahead and do it. And you walk it around the block and then hopefully pick up its shit. But basically, dogs are noisy. They're dirty. Like I said, they take shits, and you have to pick it up. And they require exercise. It's something that you have to invest more of your time in. It's more difficult if you're busy working in the city to really take care of the dog. So I think a lot of the dogs are actually they're not exercised to the degree they should be. So the dog's going to get fat, just like so many of these cats get fat. A lot of their owners get fat too. It's great if you go jogging with your dog. That's nice too, but it's still a weird thing. Well, urban living is so neurotic in this decadent phase in Western culture. Other people who have cats, they take the like I had a friend who did this. He had 2 cats. They were twins, and they spent their entire 18 or 19-year life in a suburban house in West Toronto. And I had a cat in my family when we were growing up. We took one after another, and that was in a suburban area where there was a big park and we had a big backyard, and the cats were outdoor cats. Like they'd sleep indoors, but they could be outside whenever they wanted, and they would catch mice and kill a lot of mice because they had that particular setting that was ideally suited for them. But it wasn't my decision to have a cat, and I live on my own now, and I don't have a cat. I have no desire to own a cat. I like cats, obviously, you might tell, better than dogs, but I have no desire to own either of these things. I don't even have any plants. I'm happy living alone. I'm happy. I'm happy being with my own thoughts, where I can focus. I don't have to care about taking care of some other thing. I can devote my thoughts to my projects and what have you. But many of us like being distracted. We like having often that's a female thing, but a lot of the pet culture is a lot of men too. It really is. And so getting back to my friend who kept his 2 cats, it was his parents doing that too, but he was of the same opinion that they should be kept in the house because the cats will live longer because they'll be less likely to catch a disease. Apparently that's how the logic goes. I don't necessarily agree with that. Maybe there's some scientific studies, but our outdoor cats have lived from like 19 or 20, being outdoors like all the time, so I don't necessarily agree with that. I just think it's cruel to keep an animal like a cat that naturally wants to be hunting. Like it's in its DNA to hunt, and you want to keep it indoors to satisfy your own ego. That it's not really about the cat, because in nature, animals tear each other to pieces. Animals get sick. Animals get lost. Animals die all the time in nature. Just a few days ago, I was walking through a park in the early, bright afternoon, and there were these 14-year-old, there were these like two boys and a girl, and one of them came running across the field to the other one and said, "Hey, someone lost their small white dog in the bushes. Come help us look for it." And then they were like, "Okay," and they went off to the bushes to help someone look for their small white lost dog. And I thought to myself, like, man, what are you doing? Like, let nature take its course. Let nature take its course. That was in a pretty busy part of the city, so that dog is not going to get killed by a coyote, but it could get run over by a car, or it could starve. But anyways, that I did come across a man when I was biking up the Humber River in the northwest part of Toronto, which is now really in the suburbs, and it's more wild there. I see deer, and I've even seen a wolf, and it was in this environment where this man was like, "Oh, I lost my dog, he ran off," and I was like, "No, sorry, man, I haven't seen your dog, but good luck." And then as I biked off, not maliciously, but I don't want anything necessarily, because he was a nice man. I don't want him to lose his dog, but I thought it's like, this ain't a good place to lose a dog. This is this is a real forest down on the floodplain there. This could be coyotes. It could be dog won't land in, and these urban dogs are so small. That's another immoral thing. We've bred these unnatural dogs that are like these tiny dogs to satisfy our ego. A dog that the heart won't last very long. If a dog is too big, well, dogs don't have good hearts in general. But if the dog's very big, its life is going to be cut short because its heart will give out. And I think it's the same thing for these small dogs. Small yapping dogs. They're incredibly annoying. And I want to kick them like a soccer ball. I want to kick them across the street. I've never done that. But when I lived in Etobicoke, that's where I grew up. My family's house, originally was in Etobicoke, in a nice suburban neighborhood. And the new neighbor who moved in, he was a nice Serbian guy with a rural mentality. So he didn't have this urban mentality. He had a huge dog to use as security to guard his motorbikes, because he had some expensive motorcycles, which is cool. So he didn't love his dog, and that dog was outdoors all the time. It was like some Siberian dog, and he would throw it like raw meat, and the dog would just like tear it apart. And obviously, you know, the animals have souls too, and I don't wish anything negative to that dog. And it was probably a very miserable dog, but it was just barking, shaking the house. So trying to do my thing, I can't do that if it's right outside there. That's not a peaceful place to operate. And so I wanted to take a golf club and whack it so hard in the head that its brains came out. But I never did that, of course. But I thought of doing that a lot. Sometimes I threw snow at it, and then it would bark at me. Yeah, I mean, that's a natural desire. It puts you into this mindset where you want to kill this thing, because animals don't belong in cities. They belong in rural areas. So my neighbor there in Etobicoke, he like, that's not the right thing to do either. I mean, at least I like that he's not, you know, trying to make a small dog and, you know, dote on it all the time, like you see with the condo dwellers. People who live in condos, they have the small dog, but at the same time, it's still a city. So what do you expect this to be? Basically, dogs and cats really don't belong in cities. Arguably, you can make an argument for cats in cities, because cats don't need the same area that a dog needs to go for its walk. Cats are smaller. Cats can perform functions like eating, mostly catching mice, or keeping other critters away. That was the original reason for having a cat around, right? So it's uniquely a Western problem. It's a psychological problem in the West, our neurotic attitude towards animals. You don't see this in the rest of the world. You don't see this in developed countries. In a regular developing country, a dog is never something you would have in your house. A dog might be permitted around the area to pick up scraps, but otherwise it's something you don't want in your community. And I remember my Swahili professor, when I was auditing a course, and he grew up in Tanzania, and he was making the same comparison. He was laughing at Westerners for our obsession with pets, and he was saying that when he grew up in a village or small town in Tanzania, and he was a boy, I don't know, around the ages of 7 or 8 or 9, he would get together with the other boys, and they would run around with rocks, and they would kill dogs. And they would chase after dogs and kill them. And it was fun for them. And that's great. You were cleaning up the community. Those dogs are dirty. You don't want them taking a shit around. They could be rabid. They could be a threat to little children. So yeah, stone them to death. Get them out of there. Dogs are dirty. But we have this emotional bond with dogs. Okay, no, that's not entirely true. Dogs are useful. Of course they're useful in a certain rural setting, for security. Yeah, so but most people are too poor that they don't have anything worth stealing anyways. But if you're a wealthy person, then yeah, and you're in a developing country, you're going to need possibly a dog for security. But then, because you're in a rural area, there's more space for the dog. You're in the countryside. So that's much more suited for the dog, where it's supposed to be using its sense of smell and hearing to bark at anything that's approaching your property at night. That this is the historic use of dog, and then using them in hunting. When man was actually hunting after deer. I mean, sure, then you want to have the assistance of dogs, and that's not at all how we're living in the West today. So why do we have more dogs than ever? Because we're so lonely, we're so neurotic, and we want to have. I mentioned the one couple who had 2 cats. Now they actually have added a dog. So they've added a puppy, and now with those 2 cats. So how far are you going to take this? Are you going to have any kids? They're in their early 30s like me. So she hasn't had a kid. Are you going to have any real kids? I don't know. You're running out of time. You know, the woman's eggs are going to get a little stale by 35. If you don't have a kid, then that might be too late. Well, you could still try, but it might not come out all right. And then there's this other couple I know that, let's call them Richard and Aaron, and they have 2 cats. And again, early 30s. They recently purchased a house in Toronto. I don't think they bought the whole thing. They're paying a mortgage on it, or they made the down payment, of course, but they'll be paying it off for years. Man works, she works too, but they have 2 cats. They have an extra bedroom for a kid. She's almost 31. Are they going to have kids? I don't know. It's like now or never, but oh, you have two cats, so the cats are there. The cats are entertainment when you come by. Like I said, the cats come by in the living room. And it's just this weird obsession. You see it on social media. I mean, this is something a lot of people mention. Pets as this obsession, like all this kind of kitty memes. Like, I don't care what your cat is doing. Like I said, cats are fine. I like them better than dogs, but I don't care. Like if it's, yeah, cats can do clever things. Like my cat once understood that a doorknob opens a door, and it was reaching for the doorknob to open the door, but of course it doesn't have fingers like a human, but it was trying. So cats are smart. But then this whole social media fixation with cats playing keyboards, and so man, if you put that in your video, that's like, I was watching some MGTOW video, and it was like talking about something, and it was a good video, but then at the end of it, just as the credits or whatever were rolling, he had his you know how it is, it's kind of like not an intro, but your finishing thing. And it was like some cat playing a keyboard. Obviously, it wasn't real. I'm like, why would you do that? Now I'm not going to follow your channel. I'm not going to follow your channel. So anyways, yeah, cats don't belong trapped in a house. They should be outdoor if you're going to have them. But generally, pets don't belong in the cities. Pets are an expression of this decadent phase. And getting back to the dogs, I mentioned like how we speak to dogs like children, well, cats too, but then specifically one thing I really don't get. I mean, look, a lot of this has to do with psychological types. So some of us are, there's just different personalities, and some people are okay with dogs, maybe more extroverted people. Some people are more okay with cats. Other people don't need either, like me. Like I don't need either. I mean, cats are okay, but I don't need any animals. I don't want any animals around. But this extreme attention often with a dog, much more emotional. The dog is emotional. The people who like dogs are often more outgoing, sporty people who are, extroverted. I don't know. I'm generalizing. But what I really don't get is being okay with it licking your face. I mean, I guess if you've had that happen from a child, it's like, oh, it doesn't matter. But man, that dog, I mean, where has it put its tongue? You know what dogs do. You know what they do. How can you let that thing lick any part of you? Lick your face? And you're okay with that? Oh, man. That's not okay. The dog, people being okay with a dog licking your face, that's what's wrong with our Western culture right there. Okay, maybe people in the past did that too. Maybe in the 300 years ago, the Siberian Slavic hunters moving across Asia, they would have had dogs, and maybe they would have been okay with dogs licking their face. I don't know, but it's weird. It's really weird. And isn't it fucked up how people instantly change when a dog comes? It's like you could be talking with them, and they're talking one way. They're like, yeah, that's great. We're going to do that tomorrow. Bang on. That's great. And then a dog is like, oh, hey, buddy. Hey, how are you? And it's like within the space of a second, their voice, their whole tone, their whole energy has changed because this dog has come into their space. I think that's really fucked up. I mean, people just have to be left alone. Maybe for women, they're not comfortable with that, so they got to get their cats and they'll keep collecting them forever as much as they can. But at least for the men, if there's some of you men that can be saved, you must see the light. You must be comfortable being alone with your own thoughts. You don't need these pets, man. You don't need any of this emotional connection. You can be quite all right on your own. Quite all right. Well, I guess those are all my thoughts here. Hope you enjoyed that. Hasta luego, amigos.